She had exactly two choices left in this unforgiving world. Trade her dignity for a warm bed, or face the freezing rain with nothing but her honor intact. Elara chose the storm. Walking barefoot through the freezing mud of the Wyoming Territory, she had no idea that this desperate escape would lead her straight to the one place she never thought she'd find a home. But the man who opened the door wasn't just a rugged rancher looking for a servant. He was a broken father looking for a miracle. What she didn't know was that saving his family might just cost her everything she had left. Welcome back to Frontier Rescue Stories. Before we ride out into the story, do me a huge favor. Hit that like button and smash subscribe. And hey, I love hearing from you all. Drop a comment down below and tell me which part of the world you're tuning in from today. Are you watching from the sunny south? Or maybe somewhere with a little snow on the ground? Let me know. Today we have a powerful tale about redemption, second chances, and the courage to stand tall against a judgmental town. Now settle in and grab a warm drink. Here is the story of the Saloon Girl's redemption. The Wyoming Territory in the late 1880s was a land of stark contrasts. It was a place where vast rolling plains met the jagged teeth of the mountains, and where the promise of freedom often clashed with the harsh reality of survival. In the bustling frontier town of Willow Creek, the dusty streets were lined with establishments that promised rest for the weary and distraction for the lonely. But behind the closed doors of the log cabins and storefronts, secrets festered like untreated wounds. At the heart of Willow Creek stood Vane's Saloon and Gambling Hall. By day, it masqueraded as a respectable meeting place for cattlemen and travelers to wash the trail dust from their throats. But when the sun dipped below the horizon and the lanterns flickered to life, it transformed into a den of vice, filled with the smoke of cheap cigars and the clinking of whiskey glasses. For 4 long years, Elara Vance had lived in this world, yet she had never truly been part of it. She wasn't one of the women who sold their company for a silver dollar. No, Elara was the girl who served the drinks with a steady hand and a modest gaze. She was the one who soothed the crying children of the other employees while their mothers worked the floor. And on quiet nights, she was the one who sat at the battered upright piano, her fingers dancing over the keys, filling the smoky room with melodies she had learned from the nuns at the convent where she was raised. Her voice, sweet and melancholic, had a way of silencing even the rowdiest drunks, making them remember the homes they left behind and the loves they had lost. Elara sang to keep the darkness at bay, always maintaining a careful distance. She held on to a fragile hope that if she saved enough pennies, she could buy a train ticket to anywhere but here. But Silas Vane, the owner of the saloon, had been watching her. He saw not a person, but an investment that wasn't paying off. One fateful night, after the last patron had stumbled out into the pre-dawn gloom, Silas summoned Elara to his office. The air was thick with the smell of stale liquor and greed. His eyes raked over her with a look she had seen him give a prize mare, calculating and cold. "Elara, darling," he drawled, his voice grating like sandpaper on stone. "You're 22 now. You aren't a child anymore. The other girls are talking. They say you aren't pulling your weight around here." Elara's heart hammered against her ribs. "I work hard, Mr. Vane. I tend the bar. I watch the little ones. I sing until my throat is raw. I do everything asked of me." Silas laughed, a sharp, humorless sound. "You think this is a charity ward? You eat my food. You sleep under my roof. It's time you start earning real money like the other women. Tonight you stop playing the saint." The room seemed to spin. Elara had known this day might come, but the horror of it was fresh and biting. "I can't do that, sir." "It's not who I am." "Then it's who you'll be on the street," Silas sneered, leaning back in his chair. "You can leave right now. But don't expect a letter of recommendation. And good luck finding decent work in this town with the smell of my saloon on you." Elara didn't hesitate. She would rather freeze than sell her soul. She gathered her few belongings and stepped out into the unforgiving night. But Silas was right about one thing: the town had no mercy. She knocked on doors she thought were friendly. But the moment they recognized her as the girl from Vane's Saloon, the latches were thrown and the curtains drawn. The news of her dismissal traveled faster than a prairie fire. Desperate and alone, Elara walked aimlessly as the skies opened up. The rain fell in sheets, turning the dirt road into a river of freezing mud. Her boots were worn thin, and soon she was stumbling barefoot, the cold seeping into her very bones. She couldn't see through the darkness and the tears blurring her vision. But she kept moving, driven by the instinct to survive. Just when her legs were about to give out, A flash of lightning illuminated a structure in the distance. It wasn't a house or a barn, but a small, humble chapel sitting on the edge of a large homestead. It was simple, built of sturdy logs with a modest bell tower, but to Elara it looked like a palace. She scrambled toward it, collapsing under the small overhang at the entrance, shivering violently. She curled into a ball, trying to preserve whatever warmth she had left. The rain hammered against the roof, a relentless drumbeat that matched the pounding of her heart. She tried to pray, but the words stuck in her throat. How could she ask for mercy when the world had shown her none? Suddenly, the rhythmic thud of horse hooves cut through the sound of the storm. Elara shrank back into the shadows, pressing herself against the rough wood of the chapel wall. Was it Silas coming to drag her back, or a stranger with ill intentions? The horse stopped just yards away. Heavy boots hit the mud. A deep masculine voice called out, tired and rough around the edges. "Is anyone there?" Elara held her breath. She could stay hidden, wait for him to ride on. But something in that voice stopped her. It didn't hold the threat she was used to. It held a profound weariness, a sadness that echoed her own. "Is someone there?" The voice repeated, closer this time. The beam of a lantern sliced through the dark, landing on her huddled form. Elara looked up, shielding her eyes against the light. The man towering over her was tall, with broad shoulders and a beard trimmed close to his face. His eyes, illuminated by the flickering flame, were kind but haunted. This was Caleb Thorne. He had been out checking his livestock before the storm worsened. When he spotted the shadow on his porch, he approached slowly, hands visible, showing he meant no harm. "Miss, are you all right?" he asked, keeping a respectful distance. "Are you hurt?" I just needed shelter from the rain," Elara rasped, her voice trembling from the cold. Caleb looked at her, really looked at her. He saw the soaked, thin dress, the bare feet muddy and bruised, the way she shook like a leaf in the wind. He knew trouble when he saw it, but he also knew a soul in need. "You can't stay out here," he said firmly but gently. "You'll catch your death." Elara flinched. "I have nowhere to go. Please, I'll leave as soon as the rain stops." "That aren't what I meant," Caleb said, unbuttoning his heavy wool coat. He draped it over her shoulders, the fabric instantly enveloping her in his warmth. "My cabin is just up the rise. There's a fire, hot food, and a dry place to rest." Elara looked at him with suspicion. In her world, nothing was free. "I can't pay you, mister." "I didn't ask for payment," Caleb replied, his voice steady as an oak. "It's just the Christian thing to do." For the first time that night, the ice around Elara's heart cracked just a little. She nodded, too weak to argue, and let him help her up onto his horse. As they rode toward the main house, Caleb asked no questions, a mercy she hadn't expected. They arrived at a large 2-story log cabin, the windows glowing with a welcoming yellow light. Caleb guided her inside, where they were met by an older woman with a stern but kindly face, Mrs. Hattie, the housekeeper. "Mercy, child, you're frozen solid," Mrs. Hattie exclaimed, bustling forward. "Come with me. Let's get you a hot bath and dry clothes before the fever takes you." For the first time in years, Elara felt like a human being rather than a commodity. As the warm water of the bath washed away the mud of the road, she wondered if she had stumbled into a dream, or if this rugged rancher and his quiet home were exactly the sanctuary she had been praying for. The simple cotton dress Mrs. Hattie had laid out was a little loose in the waist, but to Elara it felt like the finest silk gown she had ever worn. It smelled of lavender and sunshine, scents she hadn't known in a long time. When she finally descended the narrow wooden staircase to the kitchen, she found Caleb sitting at the heavy oak table. He had changed out of his wet trail gear into a clean flannel shirt, his hair still damp from the rain. He stood when she entered, a gesture of respect that made Elara catch her breath. Men in Willow Creek didn't stand for women like her. "Sit," he said softly, gesturing to a chair. "Mrs. Hattie makes a chicken soup that can cure just about anything. It'll do you good." Elara ate in silence, the warmth of the broth spreading through her chest. Realizing she hadn't eaten a proper meal in 3 days, she felt Caleb's eyes on her, not with the lustful gaze of the saloon patrons, but with a quiet, measuring intensity. "What's your name?" he finally asked. "Elara Vance," she replied, setting down her spoon. "I'm Caleb Thorne. This is the Double Creek Ranch." He paused, leaning forward slightly. "Do you want to tell me what happened out there, Miss Vance?" Elara hesitated. The truth was a dangerous thing. If she told him she came from Vane's saloon, he might throw her back into the storm. But lying to the man who saved her life felt like a sin she couldn't bear. "I worked in town," she said carefully. "I lost my position and—" "I had nowhere else to go." Caleb nodded slowly, seemingly understanding that she wanted to keep the darker details buried. "Do you have family?" "No, I grew up with the sisters at the St. Mary's Convent. I left when I was 19. Caleb absorbed this, staring into his coffee cup. Then he took a deep breath, as if bracing himself for a heavy lift. "Listen, Elara, I'm going to be straight with you. I've been a widower for 2 years now. My wife passed during childbirth." His voice cracked slightly, a chink in his armor. "I have 2 young daughters who are struggling. Since their mother passed, they haven't been the same." Elara listened, sensing the desperation behind his stoic facade. "Lily is 9, Caleb continued. "She's angry at the world, rebellious, and little Rose is 5. She just cries. She cries at everything. They need a woman's touch. Someone who understands their hearts in a way a rough cattleman like me just can't." He looked her dead in the eye. "If you want, you can stay here. Look after the girls, help Mrs. Hattie with the house, and maybe teach them a thing or two. In exchange, you get room, board, and fair wages." Elara was stunned. "You don't know me. Mr. Thorne, how can you trust your daughters to a stranger? You chose to sleep in the freezing rain rather than do something that went against your principles." Caleb said, his voice firm. "That tells me more about your character than any letter of recommendation ever could." That night, Elara slept in a real bed for the first time in years. When she woke the next morning, sunlight was streaming through the shutters, and for a terrifying second, she thought it had all been a dream. But the smell of frying bacon pulled her back to reality. She dressed quickly and went downstairs. Caleb was already sipping coffee, and seated at the table were 2 little girls. The younger one, Rose, looked small and fragile. The older one, Lily, sat with her arms crossed, staring daggers at her plate. "Good morning," Caleb said, attempting a smile. "Elara, these are my girls, Lily and Rose." "Good morning," Elara said softly. Rose offered a shy, tiny wave. Lily grumbled something under her breath and aggressively stirred her oatmeal. "Lily," Caleb warned, his voice low. "Greet Miss Elara properly." "Morning," the child muttered, refusing to look up. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Elara knew this behavior well. She had seen it in the children at the saloon who felt abandoned. She knew she couldn't force her way in. She had to sneak in through the side door. "Do you girls like maple candy?" Elara asked casually, buttering a biscuit. Lily's head snapped up. Curiosity warred with her anger. "I know how to make a special kind of maple candy," Elara continued, her eyes twinkling. "It sticks to your fingers and makes a delicious mess. But I need help stirring the pot." For the first time, the scowl slipped from Lily's face. "Can I lick the spoon?" "That's the best part," Elara winked. Caleb watched in amazement. He had been fighting a war with Lily for months, and this stranger had just negotiated a truce in under 2 minutes. Then little Rose spoke up, her voice barely a whisper. "Miss Elara, do you know how to sing?" "I do, sweetie." "Do you like music?" Rose nodded vigorously. "Mama used to sing to me every night. Papa doesn't know her songs." A heavy silence fell over the table. Caleb looked down at his hands. Elara saw the open wound of grief right there in the kitchen. "How about this?" Elara suggested gently. "After we make the candy, I teach you a brand new song. One your mama didn't sing, but one that's very special." Rose clapped her hands. Even Lily seemed to be listening. Caleb stood up, grabbing his hat. "I have to check the herd. You girls behave for Miss Elara." As soon as he was gone, the house transformed. They made the sticky maple candy, laughing as Lily got it all over her chin. While the candy cooled, Elara sat at the old dusty piano in the parlor. It was out of tune, but it had a heart. She began to play a lively tune she'd learned at the convent. Rose ran over immediately. "How do you do that?" "I learned when I was little." "Want to try?" Elara lifted Rose onto the bench. Lily lingered in the doorway, pretending not to care. "Lily, there's room for you too," Elara called out. "Piano is for soft girls," Lily huffed, though she took a step closer. "Not at all," Elara laughed. "I know plenty of tough cowboys who can play. Even your papa could learn." That broke the dam. Lily joined them, and soon 3 pairs of hands were banging out a chaotic but joyful melody. When Caleb returned at sunset, he stopped on the porch, frozen. He heard something he hadn't heard in 2 years. Laughter. Genuine belly-deep laughter. He walked in to find his daughters covered in flour and dirt, their faces flushed with joy. "Papa!" Rose ran to him. "Miss Elara made me a doll and taught us a song." Lily walked up smiling. "And the candy got stuck in my teeth just like she said." Caleb looked at Elara, who was quietly sewing in the corner. In one day she had done the impossible. "Seems you had fun," he said, a lump in his throat. "Miss Elara," Rose asked suddenly, "are you going to stay forever?" The question hung in the air. Caleb and Elara locked eyes. In hers he saw hope. In his she saw gratitude. Over the next 4 weeks the Double Creek Ranch changed completely. The silence that had haunted the hallways was replaced by music and the smell of baking bread. Lily stopped fighting at every meal and started helping with the chores. Rose slept through the night, lulled by Elara's lullabies. And Caleb started to live again. He watched Elara braid Rose's hair with infinite patience. He watched her gently correct Lily without raising her voice. He realized that the void in his home and in his heart was being filled by this woman who had walked out of the storm. Elara, too, found a peace she had never known. For the first time, she wasn't just surviving. She was needed. She was loved. But as the days turned into a month of bliss, neither of them noticed the shadow looming on the horizon. Happiness in a town like Willow Creek was often fragile, and there were forces at work that couldn't stand to see a fallen woman rise so high. The peace they had built was about to be tested by a knock at the door. One crisp morning, about a week later, the Wyoming sun poured through the kitchen windows, catching the dust motes dancing in the air. Caleb stood in the doorway, quietly watching Elara stir a pot of oatmeal. She was humming a soft tune, her brown hair catching the light, and for a moment, the rugged rancher felt a lump form in his throat. The house, once cold and silent as a tomb, was now warm and alive. "Good morning," he said, keeping his voice low so as not to startle her. Elara turned, a genuine smile lighting up her face. "Morning, Caleb. Breakfast is nearly ready. The girls are still asleep." They stood there for a moment in a comfortable silence, the kind that only exists between people who have weathered storms together. Caleb stepped into the room, pouring himself a cup of coffee. "Elara," he started, his voice hesitant. "Can I ask you something personal?" She tensed slightly, her hand freezing on the ladle. She had been dreading the day he would ask about the specifics of her past. "What is it?" "Have you never thought about this?" He gestured vaguely around the room. "Marrying? Having a family of your own?" The question caught her off guard. She had expected an interrogation, not an inquiry into her dreams. "I never had the opportunity," she replied honestly, her eyes drifting to the window. "The life I was dealt, it didn't leave much room for dreaming about homes and husbands." "You'd be a wonderful mother," Caleb said, his voice thick with sincerity. "I see how you are with Lily and Rose. It isn't just duty. It's love." Elara felt her heart race. "They are special girls, Caleb. It's easy to love them." "No, it isn't," he countered, stepping closer. "I know because I've tried and failed plenty. You have a gift, Elara. You bring light into dark places." Tears pricked her eyes. For years, she had been told she was worthless, a tool to be used and discarded. To hear this honorable man speak of her with such reverence was almost too much to bear. She opened her mouth to speak, but the thunderous sound of approaching horses cut her off. Caleb frowned, his demeanor shifting instantly from tender to guard. "I'm not expecting visitors." He strode to the window, and his face darkened like a thunderhead. "It's Judge Miller, and he's brought Mrs. Beatrix Sterling." Elara's blood ran cold. She knew that name. Mrs. Sterling was the cousin of Caleb's late wife, a wealthy, sharp-tongued widow who ruled Willow Creek's social circle with an iron fist. If she was here, it meant the secrets Elara had tried to outrun had finally caught up. Caleb went out to the porch, his stance wide and defensive. Elara stayed in the shadows of the kitchen, her heart hammering against her ribs, listening through the open window. "Good morning, Mr. Thorne," the judge boomed, a heavy-set man who sweated profusely even in the cool air. "We've come on a delicate matter." "What kind of matter?" Caleb asked, his voice like flint. "It has come to my attention," Mrs. Sterling cut in, her voice shrill and authoritative, "that you are harboring a woman of questionable reputation in the same house as my cousin's children." Elara closed her eyes, clutching the edge of the table. "I don't know what you're talking about, Beatrix," Caleb said calmly. "Oh, don't play the fool, Caleb," Beatrix sneered. "That woman, Elara Vance, worked at Vane's saloon for 4 years. Everyone in town knows it. She's a soiled dove, Caleb, and you have her playing mother to your daughters. Elara is a decent woman, Caleb shot back, his volume rising. She cares for my girls better than anyone else has. She is a saloon girl, Beatrix shouted. Judge, read the report. Miss Vance was employed at the gambling hall of Silas Vane. The judge read from a paper, sounding bored but official. She served liquor and entertained men. Elara knew she couldn't hide any longer. Caleb was fighting for her, but he didn't know the whole truth. She wiped her hands on her apron, took a steadying breath, and walked out onto the porch. I am Elara Vance, she said, her voice trembling but clear. And it is true. I worked at Vane's. Beatrix smiled triumphantly. See, she admits it. But I never sold myself, Elara continued, locking eyes with the older woman. I served drinks. I sang songs. I watched the children of the other women. And when Silas Vane demanded I do more, I chose the street. She stepped forward, her chin held high. I chose to go hungry. I chose to freeze in the mud rather than sell my dignity. And I would make that choice 1,000 times over. The silence on the porch was deafening. Beatrix looked momentarily stunned by the girl's defiance. Words, Beatrix spat, recovering quickly. A woman like you will say anything to trap a desperate man. I know her character, Caleb interrupted, stepping between Elara and the visitors. I know it by the way she tends to this house, by the way she teaches my girls. A woman without morals wouldn't have the patience to teach a 5-year-old piano. Mr. Thorne, the judge warned, there are laws about the moral welfare of children.
If this woman remains, we could petition to have the girls removed from your care.
Removed? Caleb's hands curled into fists. You wouldn't dare. Just then, the screen door creaked open. Lily and Rose stepped out, still in their nightgowns. Papa? Lily asked, squinting in the sunlight. Why are they yelling? Beatrix's face softened into a mask of false sweetness. Oh, you poor dears. Come here to your Auntie Beatrix. We've come to save you. Save us from what? Lily asked, frowning. From that woman. Beatrix pointed a gloved finger at Elara. She's not fit to be near you. Rose, little and fierce, ran straight to Elara and buried her face in her skirts. No, Miss Elara is the best. She makes us candy and sings us songs. She does everything a mother would do, Lily added, her voice sharp. We are happy. Why are you trying to ruin it? See, Beatrix hissed at the judge. She's confused them. She's trying to replace their poor mother. I never said she replaced Mama. Lily shouted back. I said she cares for us. Mama's gone, but Miss Elara is here. Beatrix, realizing she was losing the argument, turned her venom on Caleb. You are a fool. Caleb, she is seducing you for your land and your money. It's the oldest trick in the book. Caleb looked at Beatrix, then at the judge, and finally at Elara, who stood pale and shaking, clutching Rose's hand. Something inside him snapped into place, a clarity he hadn't felt in years. You're right about one thing, Beatrix, Caleb said, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. I do have feelings for her. But it isn't gratitude. It's admiration. Admiration for a woman who has more honor in her little finger than you have in your whole body. He turned to Elara, ignoring the gasps of the visitors. Elara, if you'll have me. I'd like to marry you. Beatrix choked. This is absurd. You've gone mad. I'm asking you, Elara, Caleb said, his eyes pleading. Will you be my wife? Elara looked at the man who had saved her life, at the children who held her hands, and then at the woman trying to destroy them. I accept, she said clearly. Then it's settled, Caleb announced, turning to the stunned judge. Since we are engaged, her moral standing is no longer your concern. She is the future Mrs. Thorne. Beatrix's face turned a shade of purple Elara had never seen before. She had come to destroy Elara, but she had inadvertently pushed Caleb to make the biggest commitment of his life. However, as Elara would soon learn, a woman like Beatrix Sterling did not accept defeat easily. She had one card left to play, a cruel condition that would test Elara's courage like nothing before. The silence on the porch of the Double Creek Ranch was heavy enough to crush a man. Mrs. Beatrix Sterling stood frozen, her face a mask of shock that slowly curdled into a cold, calculating fury. She had come here to chase a soiled dove away, only to witness an engagement that cemented Elara's place in the family she sought to control. Very well, Beatrix said, her voice dropping to a jagged whisper that carried more threat than a scream. If this is the path you choose, Caleb, so be it. But do not think for one second that I will allow my cousin's memory to be tarnished by this farce. Caleb took a step forward, his boots thudding against the wooden planks. What do you mean by that, Beatrix? I mean, she replied, smoothing her silk gloves with terrifying calm, that while I cannot stop a legal marriage, I can certainly ensure it is the most miserable union in the territory. I have enough influence in Willow Creek to see to it that no preacher agrees to officiate the ceremony. I have lawyers who can tie up your land deeds in court for years, alleging undue influence and mental instability. Elara felt a chill race down her spine. She knew the power women like Beatrix wielded. In the frontier, reputation was currency, and Beatrix Sterling held the purse strings. Furthermore, Beatrix continued, a cruel smile touching her lips, I will ensure that no merchant sells you grain, that the bank calls in your loans, and that no decent family allows their children to play with Lily and Rose. I will make you social pariahs. You will be isolated, bankrupt, and alone. Are you threatening my family? Caleb growled, his hand instinctively moving toward his belt, though he carried no weapon. I am protecting my family's honor, she shot back. Catherine was a virtuous woman from a traditional line. I will not let her be replaced by a saloon girl without a fight. Lily, who had been watching with wide, confused eyes, stepped forward and took Elara's hand. Miss Elara, are you going to leave? The innocence in the child's voice shattered the tension. Elara knelt down, ignoring the glare of the older woman, and looked Lily in the eye. I'm not going anywhere, sweetheart. Not while you need me. Do you promise? Rose squeaked from behind her sister. I promise, Elara said firmly. Caleb watched the interaction, and a fierce determination took root in his chest. Beatrix, he said, his voice eerily calm, you are making a grave mistake. You are trying to destroy the happiness of two children who have already lost their mother. If the price of their joy is becoming a scandal, then so be it. I would rather be the talk of the town, and happy, than respectable and miserable like you. Beatrix stiffened. She realized her threats of financial ruin weren't working. Caleb was too stubborn, too much of a mountain man to be bullied by potential poverty. She needed a different angle, one that would target Elara's pride. Fine, Beatrix said, changing her tack. Since you are so determined to proceed with this madness, I will offer a compromise. I will withdraw my objections. I will tell the town that I give this union my blessing, and I will ensure the bank leaves you be. Elara stood up slowly. And what is the price for this kindness? I want proof, Beatrix said, locking eyes with her. If you truly have nothing to hide, if you have truly changed, as Caleb claims, then you should have no problem demonstrating it. I want you to present yourself at the church this coming Sunday, before the entire community. To do what? Caleb asked suspiciously. To ask for forgiveness, Beatrix smirked. You will stand before the altar and publicly confess the sins of your past. You will apologize to the town for your time at Vane's saloon, and ask for their mercy. Humility is the path to redemption, is it not? That isn't redemption, Caleb spat. That is public humiliation. I won't let her do it. It's not for you to decide, Caleb, Beatrix replied smoothly. It's her choice. If she wants to be part of this community, she must bow her head. If she refuses, well then I will unleash every ounce of my influence to destroy you. Elara stood silent, the weight of the ultimatum pressing down on her. She looked at the rolling hills of the ranch, the home she had come to love. She looked at Lily and Rose, who were finally smiling again after years of grief. And she looked at Caleb, a man willing to burn his whole world down just to defend her honor. If she refused, the family would suffer. The girls would be outcasts. Caleb could lose the ranch. But if she accepted, she would have to stand in front of the very people who had slammed their doors in her face and beg for a forgiveness she didn't feel she needed. She hadn't sinned. She had survived. But looking at Caleb's worried face, Elara realized something. Beatrix wanted to break her. She wanted to see Elara Vance, the saloon girl, crumble in shame. But Elara wasn't that girl anymore. She was strong. Caleb, Elara said softly. It's all right. No, it isn't, he argued. I won't let them shame you. They can't shame me for things I didn't do, she whispered. Then, turning to Beatrix, she raised her voice. I accept. Beatrix blinked, surprised by the quick capitulation. You do? I will be at church on Sunday, Elara said, her voice ringing clear across the yard. And I will speak to the community. Sarah, Elara, no, Caleb pleaded. Yes, she insisted gently, placing a hand on his arm. Not for her, but for us. For this family we are building. We need a clean slate, Caleb. I will face them. Beatrix smiled, a look of pure, venomous triumph. She believed she had won. She believed she would watch Elara crawl. Excellent. I shall see you on Sunday then. Make sure you dress modestly. With a swirl of her skirts, Beatrix marched back to her carriage, the judge trailing behind her like a nervous puppy. As they rode away, leaving a cloud of dust in their wake, Caleb turned to Elara, grabbing her shoulders. Why did you agree to that? He asked, his voice thick with emotion. You don't owe these people anything. Elara looked up at him, and for the first time, her eyes weren't filled with fear, but with a steely resolve. Because, Caleb, she thinks she's going to see a broken woman begging for scraps. But she has no idea who I really am. The week passed in a blur of anxiety and preparation. News of the confession spread through Willow Creek like wildfire. By the time Sunday morning arrived, the church was destined to be standing room only. Half the town was coming out of malice, eager to see the saloon girl humbled. The other half was coming out of curiosity. But as Elara pinned up her hair and smoothed the front of her simple Sunday dress, she wasn't thinking about Beatrix Sterling. She was thinking about the truth. And the truth, she decided, was nothing to be ashamed of. She took a deep breath, took Caleb's arm, and walked toward the carriage. The storm had passed, but the final judgment was just beginning. Sunday morning in Willow Creek arrived with a sky so blue it looked like painted glass. But the mood in the town was anything but peaceful. The white clapboard church, usually half empty, was packed to the rafters. Folks had come from miles around, their buckboards and horses lining the fence. They whispered behind their hymnals, their eyes darting to the front pew where Mrs. Beatrix Sterling sat, looking like a queen presiding over an execution. She fanned herself slowly, a smug smile playing on her lips, waiting for the show to begin. When the heavy oak doors creaked open, silence slammed into the room like a physical blow. Caleb walked in first, his hat in his hand, his head held high. On either side of him walked Lily and Rose, dressed in their Sunday best, their small faces serious. And then came Elara. She wore a simple dress of gray wool, her hair pinned up neatly. She didn't look like a sinner coming to beg. She looked like a pioneer facing a storm, steady, terrified, and brave. They walked down the center aisle, the sound of their boots echoing on the floorboards. Caleb squeezed Elara's hand one last time before she stepped away from the safety of her new family and stood before the altar. She turned to face the congregation. She saw the judgment in their eyes, the curiosity and the scorn. But then she looked at the front row. She saw Rose clutching her rag doll and Lily nodding encouragingly. She saw Caleb looking at her with enough love to burn the church down. Neighbors, Elara began, her voice shaking slightly before finding its strength. I was told that if I wanted to stay in this valley, I had to come here and ask for your forgiveness. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Beatrix sat up straighter, expecting the apology. It is true that I worked at Vane's saloon, Elara continued, her voice ringing clear. It is true that I served whiskey to your husbands and brothers. It is true that I lived in the shadow of vice. She took a step forward, but I have not come here to apologize for surviving. When I was given the choice to sell my body or freeze on the street, I chose the street. I chose hunger over shame. I chose the cold rain over a warm bed bought with my dignity. The room was deadly quiet now. Even the dust motes seemed to hang suspended in the air. God led me to the Double Creek Ranch not to hide, but to heal, Elara said, tears shining in her eyes. In that house, 2 little girls taught me that love isn't about bloodlines or reputations. It's about who stays when the night gets dark. It's about who holds you when you cry. And a good man taught me that honor isn't about what people say about you in town. It's about what you do when no one is watching. And that, my friends, is where we leave Caleb and Elara, basking in the sunshine of a life they fought tooth and nail to build. It just goes to show that your past doesn't define your future, only your courage does. If this story touched your heart, please go ahead and hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow. And if you haven't already, subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss a tale from the frontier. I want to know what you think. Do you think Elara was right to stand up to Mrs. Sterling? Or should she have kept her head down? Let me know in the comments below. And hey, if you're hungry for more stories of survival and romance in the Wild West, check out the playlist on your screen right now. We've got plenty more adventures waiting for you. Thank you for spending your time with Frontier Rescue Stories. Until next time, keep your powder dry and your heart open. Take care, folks.